So fundamentally, software development is solving human problems. It's not programming. Programming is just the realization of the solution. The real problem is talking to humans and figuring out like, you gave me four things and they're kind of contradictory. Well, which one is it? So my job as a programmer is to ask the same question eight different ways to figure out like, oh, this is what you really want, not what you think you want. And then I take the things you really actually want and figure out, is there a solution that maps to those things? And if I can find one, I can then implement that. But that's the squishy, messy part of software development that ChatGPT will never do today. I mean,
Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name is Jeff. I'm here with Peter Lynn. We are in season 2 of Practical AI, and I like to sometimes just remind people that this is a great series to listen to or watch in double time, since Peter and I kind of talk slow. So Practical AI is brought to you today by Pocket AI. Pocket AI is a tool that you can use to edit the weights of your model. With Pocket AI, you can prune over 60% of the weights in your model while increasing accuracy. Peter, we wanted to stay on the topic of O1, the new model from OpenAI, also known as Strawberry. And you've been kind of listening or watching what the communities are listening to and talking to. What's the mood and what are the themes that are kind of coming out this first week of this new product?
in general, it's been pretty positive. People are really kind of struck by how well the show your work thing, the reasoning part. And as a result, a lot of people are attributing that is reasoning, right? Because it looks like it's reasoning. So it looks like a cat, it smells like a cat. Is it a cat? So people are really hyped. But the reality is we don't actually know. I mean, because we don't understand the weights, we can't really claim with any certainty that it actually is reasoning. But it looks like it is, right?
And what are the sort of hallmark examples of looks like reasoning? What is it doing that looks like reasoning?
The obvious example is math. If you ask in a math question now, it'll show the steps of like, here's a problem, like a math word problem, and it'll work through it. Like, okay, here's step one, here's step two, three, and it'll go through the steps, which is all good. So I think from a tutoring perspective, Khan Academy could use something like this to really kind of enhance their tutoring kind of philosophy and approach because now you can show the steps or a student could give it their work and then it could analyze why the student got it wrong. So that to me would be very useful. But
Okay. Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that the whole reasoning thing, like I got B's in math. My brother got B's in math. Um, but I always felt like my B in math was because I figured out or memorized or just understood the pattern or whatever. Whereas he never studied and he got B's in math and he understood the concepts. Like he could explain it to me. And so even though we both ended up with the same output, I felt like he was way better at reasoning through math than I was. So is it possible that these things are clearly not reasoning and it's been trained well to, with prompt engineering and the stuff we talked about last week, to just demonstrate or look like it's reasoning?
The answer is we don't know. And so that's the to me the danger is people attributing things because of human bias. Like we see something and we go, oh, that's it looks human-like, so let's anthropomorphize this thing of like, oh, it's acting like a human. It's like, no, it's the silicon, it's a bunch of GPUs, it's not human. It can produce a result that looks like it's reasoning, but we have no way of proving it currently. So although it's human to want to do that, I think it's dangerous because we're attributing things that we can't prove that aren't real. But is it still useful? Yes, it definitely is still useful, but we just have to be careful with making statements like, oh, this will get rid of programming jobs. It's like, no. Like a
Okay,
lot of the videos were like, is this going to replace a programmer? So
let's
my
go
first
into
thought,
that a little bit. Why do you think that the programmer job is safe for now?
well, the job of programmer isn't writing code. I know that that's what universities want to tell you, that if you learn these languages and these patterns and these theories, the science of computer science, that you magically will be able to write software. And that's not true. Software development is talking to humans, figuring out what problems need to be solved, figuring out what you actually should solve, and then actually solving it. And that has nothing to do with programming. That's problem solving.
Right, but could you argue that AI could help us figure out what the human wants, and so therefore our requirements are better, and therefore there's cleaner code, or is it not as simple as that?
It's not as simple as that. So an example that we've seen in the past with good customers is the business people will come up with a set of like wish list things. They give it to programmers. And we've seen this. Programmers go off for 3 months and write something. They shoot to the business guys and they're like, what did you write? And they're like, well, we took your requirements you wrote down and we wrote this. And they're like, no, this is not what we want.
Come on, you're always ripping on the user, the business users are always
Right. And then we come in, we get called in and we're like, you've got 1 month to fix this thing that's broken.
right. Just Peter, just
Good.
because we don't won't know what we want doesn't mean it's our problem.
Well, but so fundamentally, software development is solving human problems. It's not programming. Programming is just the realization of the solution. The real problem is talking to humans and figuring out like, you gave me four things and they're kind of contradictory. Well, which one is it? So my job as a programmer is to ask the same question 8 different ways to figure out like, oh, this is what you really want, not what you think you want. And then I take the things you really actually want and figure out, is there a solution that maps to those things? And if I can find one, I can then implement that. But that's the squishy, messy part of software development that ChatGPT will never do today. I mean, maybe in the future it could, but it means you have to understand the human aspect of what a requirement is, like what the emotional and psychological reason for wanting a certain feature.
Yeah.
So you have to like
Okay.
be, it needs empathy.
That's going to be a tough sell to get
Yeah.
a computer to have empathy. Um, so if we take a couple of steps back from like the solution of a that a programmer is trying to implement, and just kind of focus in on the code, right? The code itself as just a project. You've used, Copilot and
Yep.
other code generating tools.
Yep.
Um, and if you have to make or write code that creates something that's supposed to run and do something, how is what's the current state of OpenAI and O1 and some of these other things as it relates to just writing clean code?
I would say right now the best ones, it's about half the time the code will actually run, but that doesn't mean it's actually what you want. It just means that it has no compilation errors.
Okay, and
Um,
that's Copilot.
Same thing.
Okay.
Yep. And then of the half that actually compiles, probably half of what isn't code that a real programmer would write. They'd be like, this is garbage code.
So the code that's getting spit out, from these Gen AI platforms really can only it's trained on stuff that currently exists. Is
Yeah.
the problem that we're prompting poorly, or is it the problem that we're training on bad data or some other thing?
Well, the problem is that most data is garbage. Like
Okay.
there's a common joke with programmers is that all code is ugly the minute you write it down. The code is only perfect in your brain. The minute it's on the keyboard, it's ugly. Yep.
So with if we have if we're training on bad code data,
Yep.
right, and we're generating code
Yep.
off of bad code data, we're probably generating bad code. Are
Yeah.
we going to get in a place where we actually get really good code someday, or is it going to get worse? Are we going to have an incestual sort of data problem here?
So that, I mean, that's the problem. If you were to ask seasoned programmers with 20 to 30 years experience, the number will vary, but I would say less than 5% of the code out there, most of the people, more than half, would consider it to be good, well documented, well designed code. So I mean, that's a tiny fraction. In order for a GPT or a Claude or a Gemini to get to the point where half the code is same as that top 5%, you would need to increase the data set such that half of the code that you're training on is good code.
So
Because otherwise,
where do you think this is going to go then? Do you think there will be good code out there someday that's produced by AI?
currently, I don't really think so because I mean the volume of really bad code out there is in the billions, billions of lines of really bad code, right? So it comes back to kind of like if you think about audio, signal, and noise. In order for a GPT to get good at coding that produces objectively good code, that has to be above the threshold of the noise. So if right now it's mostly noise and a load of good code, got to shift that.
Yeah. And that would take some serious human engineering for people to go out and like
Yeah.
go through code, right? Could you
Yeah.
use a guy to do that to farm good code?
Well, that's the thing is you would need really expensive, experienced engineers to want to spend a couple years reading code and annotating code to figure out what is great code to create a data set of like 100 million lines of code that's actually great code.
Yeah.
Right? That could take 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Who knows? Like that's not easy.
So if I had to summarize this next generation of this O1 conversation, um, the it's not it's demonstrating reasoning because it's articulating the steps.
Yep.
And that has people scared that if it can reason, it can eliminate programmers. And you're saying, I'll pour cold water on that. Everyone's going to be fine. Just go write good code.
Well, no, I would say not, don't write good code. Focus on solving problems
Even
and
better.
learn how to talk to humans to figure out what they actually want. Because you
Amen.
and I have had programmers who are like, they graduate from CS degrees and they're like, I'm gonna be awesome now. And they get into a project and they're like, I don't know what the business people are asking for. I'm confused. And they're like freaking out because they're like, they're telling me things, but I don't know what to do. It's like, welcome to the real world.
Yeah. Peter, good discussion. We'll keep an eye on O1 and hopefully we'll get some more iterations of these models as they come out and we'll get
Yeah.
some more sort of humanizing of these things. Um, Be sure to like, subscribe, ask questions. We'd be happy to answer them. And we will see you next time on the next episode. Take care.